I said to myself I wasn't going to make another NAS video for a while. There has been a lot of NAS videos lately on this channel, and that's not all that this channel is about. But then UGREEN sent me the DXP4800 Plus, and I just couldn't resist. There's a specific feature that I really enjoyed, and that's the fact that it has 2 network connections. However, one is 2.5 gigabits, and another one is 10 gigabits. And that's just awesome, because with this configuration, we don't need a switch to have 10 gigabit speeds. And I'm going to show you exactly why in just a minute. Inside the box, we find, well, another box. And inside that box, we get 2 silicon SSD thermal pads, a pair of Ethernet cables, a screwdriver and some screws, a power adapter, a manual, and the reminder of your 2-year warranty, and a little key for opening the HDD base. And of course, the DXP4800 Plus itself. It's built with a solid chassis and comes with a detachable magnetic fan, which also features the logo, which is, a really nice touch. On the front of the device, we have 4 HDD bays, an SD card slot, a USB-C and a USB 3.2 port, plus LED indicators for LAN connectivity and the HDDs. Then around the back, you'll find an HDMI connection, 1 USB 3.2 port, and 2 USB 2.0 ports, and also a reset button. Under the hood, it's powered by an Intel Pentium Gold 8505, which is a 5-core, 6-thread CPU that's 4K ready and supports up to 64 gigabytes of RAM. Now, underneath the NAS, there's a little compartment secured by 2 screws. Once you open it up, you'll find space for 2 NVMe drives and the pre-installed 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, 8 gigabytes isn't a lot for a NAS these days, especially if you plan to run a bunch of apps or virtual machines. So I definitely recommend upgrading at least to 16 gigabytes, but ideally to 32 gigabytes if you want to make the most out of this hardware. And of course, my favorite feature, 2 network adapters. One with 2.5 gigabits and the other with 10 gigabits. And that's a very unusual configuration, especially at this price point. In my opinion, this is the perfect NAS network port configuration, or at least one of the best that I've seen so far. Now, you might be wondering, what's the big deal about this network configuration? Well, this setup is really designed with the home user in mind. Here's the thing, 10 gigabits infrastructure is expensive. Not everyone can afford a 10 gigabit Ethernet switch, especially the good ones. Now, a lot of people just want 10 gigabits to access their NAS. And that's exactly why you'll often see switches with several 2.5 ports, plus a couple of 10 gigabit ports, which usually require SFP adapters. But here's the catch. Those adapters are expensive and they get crazy hot. This is where the network connectivity on this NAS really shines, because it opens the door to building a very affordable infrastructure with 10 gigabits. And all you need is one of these. So first, let's walk through the configuration setup for this NAS, and then I'm going to show you how to get a 10 gigabit connection without needing a switch, while still keeping a 2.5 gigabit connection for your internet and the rest of your home network. Now, first, we need to load the NAS with some disks. Just press the button here to eject the slot, turn it around, and press the button on the back to expand or extend the slot. You don't need screws, just pop the disk into the container, making sure that it aligns with the connectors in the NAS, and close the side of the tray to make sure that it's secure, and then slide it back into the NAS. Repeat this exact same process with the second disk and pop it right back into the NAS. And that's it. It couldn't be any easier, right? You can also lock these bays to avoid accidentally opening them, and that's what those keys are for. And that's great if you have, little kids running around pressing on things. I know I do. Now, to begin with, we're just going to plug this black cable into the LAN 2 or the 2.5 gigabit port, and then plug it right back into your switch or router. Then we plug the power adapter and turn the device on. Now, give it a few minutes while it boots up. I'd say leave it for 5 to 10 minutes. And when you see the lights like this, open the browser and type the following: find.ugnas.com. Then you just click connect and follow the instructions that you're going to see on the screen. I will name this one Hunter. And if you know this channel, you know it's something to do with anime. So if you know what that's from, let me know in the comments. Now keep following the instructions you see on the screen and eventually you will get to this screen. Just press initialize and just let it do its thing. Now, if you're a beginner, this guided installation is absolutely flawless. You know, they really handheld you all the way till you get to the OS. And it doesn't stop there. Once on the main screen, just hit start, follow the introductory guide, and once you're in the screen, it's time to create a pool. And to create this pool, just hit next and then click on create. Select the disks. I only have 2. So I'm going with RAID 1, which means if one disk dies, my data is still safe. Now click next, and on file system, I'm going with BTRFS. Because this is almost a tongue twister, right? BTRFS. Because as you can see in the description, it allows snapshotting and all the bells and whistles that basically a NAS should have. Click next, create, and enter your credentials again. Now I would recommend just letting the syncing finish first, because this is not ZFS. And in my case, it will take about 2 hours, but it can take a lot more depending on the size of your pool. So, you know, go and sit down and watch a couple of episodes of Solo Leveling and come back later. And now that the syncing is complete, let's create a few folders and, you know, take it for a spin. Click on the assistant or on files and hit start. Select where you want to put the folders, and in my case, it's volume 1. I gave full control to my user and clicked OK. Now I will create a shared folder by clicking on, well, shared folder. Then you also give it a name and just hit create. Now we just need to enable the SMB share or the folders will not be accessible on the client, especially on Windows. So to do that, just go to the control panel, click on File, Service, SMB, and enable the service. Then you can just add a location or create a network drive on Windows by putting, well, the name of your NAS or entering the IP address. All right, and now comes the fun part of the video. If you have a 10 gigabit switch, it's very simple. You just plug the NAS directly into the switch using the 10 gigabit port and you're good to go. But if you don't have a 10 gigabit switch, it doesn't mean that you can't still enjoy 10 gigabit speeds. Here's what we're going to do. Since the NAS has 2 network ports, one at 2.5 and another one at 10 gigabits, we're going to use a split network. So the 2.5 gigabit port will connect to your home router or switch, just like normal, and the 10 gigabit port will connect directly to your main computer. Now, your main computer will obviously need a 10 gigabit network card. I made a video a while back talking about these affordable cards with Intel chipsets, and back then they cost around $10, I think. And they've been working pretty flawlessly on my personal setup. But check out the video if you want to know more details. And of course, if you're enjoying the content so far, don't forget to like and subscribe and drop a comment just to show some love. And it's greatly appreciated. Thank you for that. All right, with that connection in place, we just need to set up a separate network for this peer-to-peer link. And here's how you do it. On Windows, click on the Start button and then search for View Network Connections. Right-click on your 10 gigabit connection and select Properties. Double-click on the Internet Protocol version 4 and use the following IP address. Okay, it needs to be a completely different network lease, all right? So we're going with 10.10.10.6. I just chose that one because it's 10 gigabits just to make it obvious. And the subnet mask, 255.255.255.0. You don't need to set up a gateway or a DNS because we're just talking to one machine. So leave those blank and click OK. Now, on our NAS, or Hunter NAS as I called it, open the control panel, go to Network, then Network, Connections, and find LUN1. Click Edit and set an IP within the same range. For example, 10.10.10.5. And the exact same subnet, which in our case is 255.255.255.0. It will force you to enter a gateway and a DNS, but just type, anything you want in there. It won't actually matter. This is just an operating system constraint, I guess. And that's it. If you access any folder over the 10.10.10 network, you'll be using the 10 gigabit connection. And if you access the NAS via the 192.168.10 or whatever IP your main network uses, it will automatically fall back to the 2.5 gigabit connection. Now this setup is like a poor man's 10 gigabit network, but it works. And if it saves you some cash, why not, right? Of course, if you have multiple devices or other NAS units at home running 10 gigabits, you'll eventually need a proper switch. But let's be honest, most people just have a single NAS. Now, let's move on to some testing. The DXP4800 comes with an iPerf3 server pre-installed and running. So all you need to do is run the test from a client. When I targeted the 2.5 gigabit network using the 192.168.10 IP, I got consistent 2.5 gigabit results. And when I targeted the 10 gigabit network, I get constant 10 gigabit speeds. So, all good on the iPerf3 front. Next, I ran crystal mark tests on my 10 gigabit network and the 2.5 network as well. But something happened on the 10 gigabit network. And honestly, I was a little bit disappointed because the write speeds looked pretty terrible. Like copying a file worked okay for a little while, but pretty quickly the connection got saturated. To try and fix it, I added, an extra 8 gigabytes of RAM. I wasn't really sure how their operating system actually handles memory, but I was hoping it would behave maybe a little bit like TrueNAS and use the extra RAM as cache. I know, wishful thinking, but unfortunately, after installing the 8 gigabytes of RAM, I didn't really notice much of a difference. So I thought, okay, let me try and add 500 gigabytes of NVMe and use it as a cache to see if that helps. The process is very simple, okay? Right next to the memory, there are 2 NVMe slots. So you just unscrew those little screws and you pop it, making sure that you insert it in a 90-degree angle and you push it all the way in. Then on the OS, you just click on storage, then storage again, click on the 3 dots next to the pool, and you select SSD cache management. And then you just follow the steps. You want to select RAID 1 and include both disks. So if one fails, the other one's still working, and set, the maximum size to whatever your disk can handle. I also gave it a very quick reboot and ran some new tests. But again, I got pretty much the same write speeds. So at this point, I had to look at my life and consider 2 paths. Either A, I keep fighting with a proprietary OS that I don't really fully understand, waste my time exchanging emails with the vendor, or B, just hack the thing and install TrueNAS. You probably guessed it right. The problem is that installing another OS on this thing is a bitch and a half. So you essentially need to remove the dust filter, remove 4 screws from the filter, remove another 4 screws from the fan, take the fan off, remove 4 more screws, then try and try and try to see if you can slide this thing off, only to realize that there's a stupid little screw right in the middle, just making your life harder for no reason. And all of this to find that the NVMe drive is right under the memory. Surprise! I mean, why? Surely you could just make, a little door, a little latch or whatever on top of it. Just accept that people are going to hack it. Now, since I'm installing TrueNAS, I don't really need a cache drive because TrueNAS's L2 ARC technology allows me to use system memory as cache. So I repurposed one of the NVMe drives that I previously used for cache as my main disk. And that's great because now I have a decent 500 gigabytes main drive and I can install whatever the heck I want on it. You still need to go into the BIOS, which it does automatically on the first boot, I believe, and disable Watchdog. And this is really important. If you don't, the system will keep just rebooting itself over and over again. After a quick setup, configuring everything and creating new shares and setting up the peer-to-peer network, just like we did in the UGREEN OS, the crystal mark write speeds were, well, exactly where we wanted them. Oh, but because you removed the native OS, the software that manages the lights is gone. But the good news is that your NAS now looks like Kit from the Knight Rider.
All systems functioning.
And since I had already opened Pandora's box, I also took a quick look at the CPU specs again and realized that it supports VTD. This means virtualization and IOMMU support. And that means... So yeah, I installed Proxmox, which again was super easy to install. Did a quick pass-through to the drives and the SATA controller, and another pass-through with the 10 gigabit card. I created the shares and did a test. And I tried also a virtual bridge, and the results...
Loser.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, it does need a little bit of work with NAS virtualized, but anyway, it's still a cool option to explore. So what does that mean for the UGREEN OS? Is it a complete failure? Well, here's how I look at it. If you're a beginner and you like life without hassle, the UGREEN OS is perfect for you, okay? You will hit the ground running, and very quickly you will have a full-on NAS working. As for the apps, well, the UGREEN OS comes, you know, with a few of them, but the good news is that, like the entire OS, it's super easy to get them running. Like JELLYFIN, for example. You literally just click install and select the path to the data and another one to the config. And I would have loved to show you guys this if I had pressed the recording button. But when I noticed this, I had already taken the entire thing apart and I couldn't be arsed to redo it all over again. Don't forget to subscribe. But anyway, it's all documented on this manual UGREEN put together. And it also shows you like how to do transcoding. You just literally click on the dashboard, playback, and set the transcoding option to Intel Quick Sync. And your iGPU will kick in. And there's no pass-through BS, you know, just easy NAS. However, if you are a tinkerer and like to make life hard, but a lot of fun, this NAS is also perfect for you because the hardware is awesome. In terms of power efficiency, it falls within the parameters the CPU kind of expects. So around 32 watts on idle and 55 watts on full load. And one of my favorite things about this NAS is how quiet it actually is, considering it takes mechanical drives. I mean, it's still noticeable, of course, but it's not like I have like a fan, you know, blowing air on me while I'm on my computer. And I also didn't notice any kind of like HDD drumming, which, you know, means that the slots are absorbing the HDD vibration quite well. And as for the price, it's currently listed on Amazon at £509, which for the hardware that it comes with and the network interface design, I think is a pretty attractive price considering the competition. And that's it. Thanks for hanging out. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. And of course, as always, don't forget to subscribe and like our video so I can keep making more content for you guys, all right? Take care, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.